When talking to my friends about their gut feeling and like making decisions, um, for example, like having kind of anxious or avoidant attachment styles, you don't really know when you have a gut feeling if it's coming from a avoidant pattern or like a anxious pattern. And so I just like kind of start talking about my own experiences with intuition, and for me, it's more about sort of my purpose and my career. And it really took and is taking a really long time and a lot of practice. I don't think it ever really comes in just one moment. So about a year ago, I was preparing a call with this woman. I found her on ADP list. She has built a lot of design teams and has experienced mentoring. And I wanted to get her take on this year. I wanted to spend not working full time, just exploring, trying things, drifting, creating and building out ideas I had. I've always wanted to do this, and I wanted to like really go all in because I had this opportunity, like a little gap in my work. And so I started writing a draft for what I would say to her, and then I found myself writing this line, and it was but I just feel like I'm being called to create freely right now. And when I wrote this down, I just stopped, and then I just sat back and canceled the call. I felt like this sentence just told me everything I needed to know. And even if she told me at that point, no, you would have such a hard time finding another job, like nobody would respect you again, I just knew that I had to like do this thing that I wanted to do. And I think that was coming from a place of intuition. It was really quiet, it was really soft, but it was really clear. And I'm not gonna say that the doubt went away and I just like stopped being afraid. It was still an ongoing process. I mean, I spent a year doing what I wanted to do, but always constantly being kind of like worried that I was doing the wrong thing, like, and questioning myself and doubting maybe I'm just too scared to try something or commit to something. Maybe I'm being flaky, or maybe I'm going to regret this. Maybe I'm wasting my time. And I think that's this thing about intuition that people don't talk about. It's very scary, and a lot of times you don't have any hard evidence to support what you want to do. And it just feels like this kind of inner nudge and like a little whisper that's like pulling you towards something. And yeah, I felt like this wasn't the first time I felt this. And the reason I knew that this was something that I could trust was because I've had this experience before. And I know that in the past, when I followed this pull, even when it doesn't make sense, always leads to something that is meaningful. So about 6 years ago now, I'm getting old. When I first graduated from college, I walked away from medicine. So all throughout high school and college, I really wanted to be a doctor. Honestly, like, I don't think I ever really like questioned why I wanted to be a doctor, or what it meant to be a doctor. Just like I wanted to be a doctor, so I went to school as a biology major. I volunteered in hospitals and clinics. I worked with patients a lot over the summer, over the weeks, probably like 20 hours a week of just like volunteering, working in wet labs. And at one point I like even bought a one-way ticket to Romania and like volunteered in the ER for like 3 months. And I thought I was like all in, and I just introduced myself this way to anyone that I knew. I want to be a doctor, I'm going to be a doctor. And I just saw my future was like all planned out, and I knew I was like on the right tracks. And I didn't really realize what it felt like to lie to myself until I realized what it was like to tell the truth. And it like sort of came slowly, like it was like little moments. So during this period of time, I traveled a lot. I went to Europe for the first time in my life with the school. We studied abroad in this physics program, and toward the end of that trip, I did a little bit of like solo journaling, solo traveling, and met a lot of people, and I tried a lot of new things, and I saw just like how beautiful the world was, and I never knew that I could feel so in the moment and so connected to the people around me, to the things I was seeing. And I just felt like whenever I talked about that trip and like traveling, I felt so alive, and I was like start shaking when I would talk, and it felt like I was like being shocked by lightning whenever I would talk about traveling. And also around this time, I was working on this design club with one of my best friends, and it like really like consumed my life, and in like a really great way. Like I was thinking about it 24/7. It was like always thinking about like what kind of things we were going to be doing, like what being in this club meant, and the people that was in this club, and what we were building toward, and like talking about these things, and like thinking about these things, doing these things. I always felt so just like in flow with life, and I never felt like that when I was doing anything in a medicine path. And when I started talking about patient care or medicine, I always sort of felt like I was like making a story that I was like trying to convince myself to believe. And when I started to see kind of the contrast, I realized what like really intuition felt like, and what kind of like what's truth is in my heart and in my soul. And I think it takes a lot of like trial and error to like get to the point where it's like, okay, like this is what I want. And even like at that point, I was spending a lot of time trying to understand it. Like I was like really obsessed with not knowing the answer to this thing that kept like feeling really off, not knowing, is this the right path for me? Like, do I really want to be a doctor? I felt like there was something that I needed to really understand. And then I also like felt like I was constantly being afraid that somebody was like going to find out that I was lying, and I would have to face whatever comes out if I realized that I was lying. And you know, that's just kind of like how it came about slowly. When I like wrote that sentence down a year ago about like creating freely, being called to create freely, which is such a new age woo way of saying what you want to do. I felt it. I like really felt the feeling of like, this is it. Like, this is simple. That's like what I want. And it's not like the things I was scared of was gone. But it was honest, and it was me speaking. And sometimes you just like don't know the truth until like it accidentally like comes up, and you're just like, oh shit, like that's right, that's what I want. And sometimes that like changes everything. And I think there's this romanticized idea of what it looks like when you finally follow your intuition. Like you're suddenly running through a wide open field, arms stretched, sun on your face, no doubt, no fear. Like the second you say yes, the rest of your life suddenly just clicks. That's just not how it looks all the time. And I honestly don't know if like anyone I know ever had that experience, but I think following your truth can look like waking up in the middle of the night wondering if you ruined your life, if you made a big mistake. And I remember being in my senior year of college, I had started already kind of pulling away from the pre-med track, and I was like questioning things, and I didn't have anything to replace, you know, my future with. not that after I like left, I had anything to replace it with. There was like this big open question. I went to Santa Monica with one of my best friends, and we got drunk, and at one point I was sitting in the sand, like covered in blood and bruises and sand, and just crying. And I had literally just like tripped and fell on my face on the concrete. And I remember sobbing and just asking, who am I? What am I doing with my life? And that's just part of it too. Like when you stop lying to yourself, the next truth you have to face is now you don't know who you are without the lie you've been so attached to, and that's really scary. So yeah, I don't know, like I think following your intuition, like really understanding that voice and hearing it clearly, it's just about like staying close to yourself, like trying to be honest with yourself, always coming back to yourself, through writing, talking to yourself. And these things, like they take a lot of practice, but it'll take shape. And if you ever write or say something to someone and you feel your body kind of like stop and just go really still, sometimes that might be something that's telling you what you really want. Yeah, so maybe a prompt for you guys is, have you ever had a sentence that you've written or could write that scares you because it is too true?